as a blog. That's such an interesting inception story. Started out as a blog. What it has shifted to what it is. Shifted. Ha. You like that? Has grown to what it is today. What would you say the current mission statement of Shift Movement Science is? What is the one thing that you want to accomplish?
Yeah, I think it's twofold. It started out as just trying to get more information and tools to, help athletes perform better, be happier, because there's just so much unnecessary suffering in a lot of youth sports, right? I think that way with any of these sports that are more just like not a lot of money, but a lot of work. I view like weightlifting, gymnastics, wrestling, like these very niche sports that like are just grind, you know what I mean? But they forge these as like savages. They absolutely like just come out the other side, just monsters. And I think that those people get exposure to life lessons, positive role models, all the values and stuff that then make them go on to be incredible humans. Like, and I've said this on other podcasts that I firmly believe someone in these niche sports like weightlifting, gymnastics, CrossFit, whatever, are going to like learn the values that they have to go on and like go to medical school and cure cancer, or like start a business that changes like world hunger, like something crazy like that. I believe that these sports, not that other sports don't, but these sports very much forge incredibly resilient and hardworking people who just do it for the better of themselves and the community. So that was the original start of Shift and why I did it, along with personally, I wanted to be happier knowing what I was doing was evidence-based and working. And if I could give other people those tools, I found that other medical providers, other coaches were much happier and had a lot less, stress in their life when they had tools to know how to solve problems that they commonly face. So it started off as that, just like, let me help myself be happier. Let me help athletes be happier. Let me help other people share this information. And in the last 3 years, honestly, it's become much more of a bigger than me impact I feel much more of a social responsibility to do the work necessary to help in this incredibly volatile time that a lot of us are living through, whether it's the gymnastics scandal, whether it's, gymnastics is very much a microscope and a zooming out glass of many other youth sports of kids that are getting, pushed too hard, and a lot of parents who maybe are living vicariously through their kids, or coaches who are maybe don't have the best moral intention and they're a minority in our sports, but we have to push them out and hold them accountable. So now I feel as though people have just listened to the podcast a lot more and followed me a lot. Shift has grown significantly in the last few years. And now I feel as though I have a responsibility to just do the things that I think are going to make a better legacy for the next generation of coaches, the next generation of kids. So yeah, it's much more now in terms of like I don't know what the word is to say it, but it feels much bigger than myself right now. I call them like the Three-Headed Snake. They were all chasing different self-serving interests and were putting other people's vulnerable states at risk, right? So, the doctor was clearly taking advantage of people sexually abusing them. The Carollis were looking the other way, turning a blind eye, and were putting, not even about the sexual stuff, they were putting people through horrific workouts and overtraining and pushing through injuries because of their own self-serving, I need to win, I need to be famous, this is my, status, this is my American dream, as so many, like the 30 for 30 podcast showed that with the Carollis. Yep. And then you very much had Steve Penny, who was like, clearly drunk on power, right? Hungry, wants money, he came from biking with the Lance Armstrong situation to USA Gymnastics, and he wanted the money and the power. So all these people are self-serving interests, and they're putting the athlete's lifetime of work and sacrificing their childhood at risk for that. And along with, like, again, there were some coaches in that arena who were doing the best thing by their kid. Amy Borman and Simone is the best example. They did exactly what they needed to do to protect her and keep her safe and try to like help her through that. Unfortunately, there were still a lot of problems that came up with her because USAG failed to protect her during those times. But there are examples of people who are doing the right thing, treating kids well. And we all need collectively as a majority, in the same way that the weightlifting scandal has to happen too, is the people who are doing it well and who have a spine to stand up against those people who are not acting well, they have to be the ones to band together and push that minority out of the sport and overhaul the institutional level things that are allowing that to happen, which is, I'm sure,
where does that culture of overtraining and this is the way that it needs to be done, where does that start?
I think it came from a lack of education. We didn't know, and now we do know. I think it also very much came from not only the Carollis, but many other people in that camp that just arbitrarily said, if you want to be successful at gymnastics, you have to be very tiny and very lean and very young, because it wasn't about their mentality in that time, from my understanding from the Heavy Metals podcast, was not so much that that's when you're athletically at your peak physiologically, you are just easier to spot and you're easier to teach skills. And then really what we found is you're easier to control. you're easier to, push around and say, do this and do that. And you can get them into a military style training. And that was arbitrarily brought to be success because a few athletes from that generation were successful in that model, but I don't think they were successful because of that model. They were successful despite that model. I think they were savages and they got through it because they're elite athletes, and they would have gotten through that, any other way. And they were durable. You know what I mean? They held up to the test. I think that what we're seeing is it's changing now because there's so many good examples of amazing coaches who are doing the right thing, but that culture, that mentality, the fear of the unknown is still very much existent, and it's hard to push out because change is uncomfortable. But also too, when you dig down through the layers, this is something I've gone through as a personal coach, and I've seen other people go through, is when you really get all the way down to it, it's just basic human psychology of the insecurities, the fears that the coach has, the parent has, the athlete has, that are really, the root issue. And if you want to change the culture, you have to change yourself first. You have to deal with, why am I pushing the kids so hard? Why am I yelling at kids? Am I tying my status to their accomplishments? Am I worried financially I'm not going to make money, so I have to win this competition, or all that kind of stuff? When you get into
do you see yourself as the leading force on evidence-based practice, or are those other individuals that are kind of alongside you that are helping you out?
Yeah, to the first point, I want to agree and say the exact same thing, is that I was very much, I'll say I was brainwashed when I was a younger coach. I did the exact thing that I think people fall trapped to, which is get involved, get some talented athletes, and you want them to do well. And so you just ask for help and you get mentorship, and you very much fall into this trap of doing whatever somebody else does and following the myth and the folklore and the passed down knowledge, which is valuable. Don't get me wrong. But you can't only follow that blindly. You have to also look at the empirical evidence. You have to work hard. And what we had is continual evidence-based practice being pushed off to the side because it conflicted what personal values and approaches were. So the evidence was across aligned with someone's coaching a philosophy or approach, and that made them defensive because of maybe an ego thing, or because they didn't want to look like they didn't know what they were doing. And it very much became, I'm not going to listen to that because that's going to say that I don't know it all. And that was a self-defense. And the exact same reason why gymnastics coaches don't hire strength and conditioning coaches and nutritionists and mental health providers to be on their team full time. They just do it all. They get too much put on their plate. So I want to say that I've been through that and I understand it. And then I think we're seeing the shift happen now because people are realizing that despite those approaches seeming successful 20 years ago, we have a massive attrition rate, a massive burnout rate. We have huge injury rates, a lot of stalled performance of kids that start when they're juniors and don't make it to senior level because of all this stuff. So people are like, okay, I did follow what you said, and all I got were back fractures and burnout, and my gym was losing money because everyone's quitting and it's too hard. Like, what the hell's going on here? And you realize that those people were successful because they just abused the kids and they found a way to cover it up. Not everybody, a small minority, but the ones that were successful and we made the model after, that was why we got into that hot water. So now what we're seeing is, honestly, it's grassroots movement of people who are frustrated because they're doing what they're supposed to do, quote unquote, of just body weight conditioning and lots of high reps and lots of high hours. And all they're getting in return is kids that are frustrated and hurt and overworked and very, very tired and resentful towards the coaching mentality. So I think that's what made shifts take off more, was luck meets opportunity. Whereas I was just in that position, I was like, dude, I'm trying everything I've been taught and people are still hurt and I'm really frustrated. I feel like trash as a coach because everyone's just angry with me all the time and I'm resentful. And I'm trying to be this hardcore dictatorship type coaching that's supposed to make people successful. And all I'm getting is pissed off kids and parents. That's all I get. I'm not getting high level success. I'm getting kids that break down and quit before they get to their goals. So that's when I started leaning more towards the evidence. Again, it looks like just me, but I have an amazing team of people around me who have taught me. I have some of the best mentors in the world. I have Mike and Lenny on the medical side who are phenomenal. I have some of the best strength and conditioning coaches who have taught me everything from Andy Tisch, who was Matt Fraser's Olympic lifting coach back at the OTC. He was the one who taught me how to weightlift along with Dave Picardi. So I had them helping me out with weightlifting, right? And then I have some of the best gymnastics coaches I've been lucky to talk with, like Nick Ruddick, and I've been really fortunate to learn from other people who have coached at the elite international level and consult with entire countries and federations. I have not produced an elite level gymnast, nor do I want to. That's not my passion, but they have taught me the things they do, and they firmly 1,000% believe in what I'm saying in the science. And not only do they believe in it, they say it works on the national and international elite stage. So it's okay, it's me maybe sharing the information, but it's really Mike and Lenny and Nick. And I work with Dr. Casey, who's the new women's team national physician. She's incredible. Dr. Cruz on the men's side, he's incredible pumping out research. So I think that I also have people on shift side, like my, Becky and Taylor, who just make it look like I'm doing a lot more because they're so helpful to me. So it's really all of these people that are helping me behind the scenes, teaching me. Like, don't get me wrong, I do read a lot of books and I spend a lot of time doing my own innovative work and trying to come up with the best protocols and stuff like that. But it's collectively everyone's thought process, because everybody as a unit is just fed up. You know what I mean? That's the sense in that I get, is like everybody that I've talked to on my podcast with elite level gymnasts or coaches or NCAA, everybody universally is like, this sucks. I'm not as happy as I should be. The sport is so amazing, but we are just doing it completely wrong. There has to be a better way. And so that's why I feel like my work and my podcast has been successful with evidence-based practice, because people want to know what the last 20 years of research have said. And that's what's so frustrating, is this has been around for 20 years. Like Dr. Sands was writing studies in 2000, 2005, that era, about gymnasts lifting weights and about long-term athletic development. And many other people were saying, like, this is available. Why gymnastics don't you change? And there's like, gymnastics is different. Like, we don't need to, you know what I mean? Like, you don't understand, you don't get it. And then you have people like me and Nick and Dr. Casey, people who actually were gymnasts, did college gymnastics, and are still involved in the coaching side and go, no, actually, I do get it. No, actually, I actually have been there. And I'm still telling you this is not working as well as it should be. And so that's kind of where the movement toward evidence-based practice came from. But then now the sport is just so hard. The sport is just so complicated that coaches, I am empathetic towards coaches because I'm still one. They get asked to be too many things. They get so much is dumped on their plate. They're overworked and underpaid. They have parents squawking in their ears. They have colleges squawking at them. They have no time to read in evidence-based, like the lead. They don't understand this terminology, right? It's very hard for them. So that's where Shift kind of filled that change, that gap about like, okay, here's all the geeky stuff. Here's what it means practically. Here's how we use it practically. Just you do the work to actually try and change, and I'll help you along the way. But there's a lot of people in the evidence-based world, from medical providers, nutritionists, mental health providers, that we're seeing a lot of rise from social media and other things go well. So there is a lot more resources available. But
the psychological aspect of that is enormous, because you get these girls and guys that burn out of gymnastics because they started so young. It was their entire life. They burn out on that, and they burn out on physical culture altogether, because that's all they've ever known. They know this is physical activity. This is all I've ever had. And now my wrists, my ankles, my shoulders are so messed up. I won't do anything. I won't lift weights. Think about how many amazing athletes in other sports we're missing out on as well.
Yes, there's so many. God, it's crazy to me to think about how much performance and how much health benefits are left on the table, because we just have not been open-minded to new ideas and radically different concepts of how we approach it. Like, God, there's so much good from gymnastics. There's so much good that comes from these. I wouldn't be here having a company and getting through some of the hard things that I've got through if it wasn't for my coach and my teammates in the sport. No doubt, 100%. And think about all the kids that you positively affect and stay in the sport because you just treat them well, even if their goal is to compete at low level till they're 17 years old and graduate high school and move on. Like, who gives a shit? That's fine. That's amazing. That's perfect. Awesome. You know what I mean? Like, have non-recreational programs, have competitive programs, have whatever, have adult gymnastics. Like, there's so much good that can happen in our sport. And we're seeing a minority of people who are making it sour grapes for everybody, because we're not holding them accountable, and we're not keeping up with the times in terms of like science, change, interdisciplinary care, new ideas. Like, and it takes a lot of personal courage to get through that. You have to really evolve yourself as a human. But without that, we're going to keep seeing the sport struggle. And I think we're going into a really uplifting time where things are changing, but it's going to be very painful on the path to progress. So buckle in. Now, I mean, my parting thoughts for people listening, and down the road, this will kind of be posted on my site too, is people view me as critical of the sport, but it's only because I love it so much and because I want us to come out of a dark time in a net positive. And I think that there's a lot of frustration. There's a lot of, like I said, that feeling of hopelessness sometimes, but people's work is definitely going towards progress. And there are 95% of people are amazing and they're doing well, and the sport deserves everything that it needs to get better. So please don't take my words as like a negative poopy parade and gossip fest. Like, I really am only critical because I love it so much and I want people to be happy. I think that if we have these hard conversations, people in the sport will be happier. Their mental health will be better. They'll be more fired up to be working in gymnastics. But I also think the athletes themselves will be extremely grateful and go on to do amazing things. And then it will come back around where you changed, had the harder conversations, and 10 years from now, your athletes come back to the gym and they love you and they're super grateful for everything you did. And that feeling will be worth all the pain now.